Jesse Good, Brand for Life.
I need everyone's help today getting started. When I motion toward you, you need to make the sound of a cow.
Moo. Moo. Moo.
Keep going, keep going. Keep going. Perfect, you're fantastic. You just recreated the macabre that is branding day on the Good Family Farm. I grew up in Wyoming, and my grandparents owned a farm, 10,000 acres of land. I didn't grow up on the farm, but I was always there for branding day. It was a special day. It was a huge affair. The neighbors would come from miles around to help out. Then there was always a big barbecue afterward. It was so fantastic. Have any of you ever participated in a branding day? A couple? All right. Well, here's how branding went on the Good Family Farm. We had my Uncle Mike on one horse and Uncle Ron on the other, and they were ready to rope the calves to hold them still. Now, the Torsen boys, they lived down the road, but they were a lot bigger than anybody in my family, so they were in charge of wrestling the calves to the ground. Next was my dad. He was in charge of the branding iron. The branding iron used to be Grandpa's job, but then when Grandpa got too old, he just took care of the clipping. She knows what I mean. So my dad would come over with the branding iron, and there were actually two parts to this. So then he would brand the first part onto the calf. Thanks. Where do you put the brand on the calf?
On the bottom.
Yeah, right there, right on their right thigh. Then my brother would bring over the other branding iron, they would swap, and my dad would put on the second part. I didn't draw that very well. That's a G for good. So it's a heart and a G for the goods, and my grandparents' farm was at the base of Heart Mountain. I also had a very important job. I was what I like to call the painter. I had this clear, gooey substance. I really don't know what it's called. But after my dad branded the calves, I would run over and I would paint the brand. This helped it heal better, kept it from getting disinfected, kept bugs off of it, things like that. It's been a long time since I've been to branding day. My grandparents have passed away. All of that land belongs to somebody else now. And as I've been studying more about branding lately, I'm learning that there's really a lot in common between branding on the farm and branding in business. So just so we're all clear, let's make sure we understand the concept of what a brand is. Al Ries defines a brand as an idea or word that you own in the mind of a prospect. As an example, when I think of Linda, I think of yoga. When I think of Leslie, I think of hugs. When I think of Carolyn, I think of kids. When I think of Rodney, I think of more kids. So we all have these brands that we are building, and they may be intentional. Some of them may not be. But today I would like to share with you 3 ideas for intentionally building a brand for life. Now let me be clear, I will be citing some sources and offering some examples. Because of my experience, most of these are customer service related. However, the principles that I will be sharing with you, I think could apply to anything that you're doing. So let's go back to my dad. He comes over, he brands that cow. How long will that brand be there? Forever. That means that the next year, Grandpa cannot change his brand. he has to stick with the same brand year after year. In other words, he has to be consistent. Otherwise, he's going to have all these cows running around with a bunch of different brands. The neighbor's going to say that some of those belong to him. Can't argue about that. So this is number one, be consistent. Shep Hyken, the author of The Amazement Revolution, talks about how to create amazing customer experiences. And he says that the key to it is just to consistently offer better than average customer service experiences. Consistently. In my early years of college, I had the opportunity to manage an arcade. Now that's just what every 22-year-old wants, right? Work in an arcade, it's slow, I'm going to go play some video games. I was tasked with raising the revenue in the arcade. And the first thing I observed was that a lot of the games weren't working. So we hired a game tech, and we created a little slogan for ourselves. We said we want 100% of the games working 100% of the time. We just created consistency. And in the next year, we doubled the revenue in that arcade just by being consistent and having 100% of the time. Okay, let's go back to Dad. So Dad's there, he's branding. We talked about this. How much real estate do you think you have on the thigh of a calf? It's okay. This is almost to scale. You might have this much, you might have a little bit more, but you don't have a lot. Which means that with your brand, you need to keep it simple. Ari Weinswig, the co-founder of the Zingerman's family of businesses, has said that when it comes to taking care of your customers, it's a very simple process. Just keep it simple. And that's why sometimes it's hard to get great customer service because people complicate it. Keep it simple. Recently, I was cruising around on LinkedIn looking at the profile of someone who I admire. Someone who's fulfilled some goals that I would like to fulfill. So I said, let me look at this and see what he's done that I need to do. And I pulled it up. Who's familiar with a LinkedIn profile? Most of us. There's his name and then his title of what he does. And it says CEO, co-founder, president, customer experience expert, customer service professional, keynote speaker, New York Times bestselling author, trainer, presenter. I can't even remember everything that was on there. And I said, oh my goodness, what does this guy do? Really? Because there's so much there. Branding yourself like that would be like trying to put this on a cow. It doesn't work. You don't have that much room. So you need to keep it simple. Finally, when my dad is going to place that brand on that calf, how many chances do you think he has? He has one chance. I don't know if he ever messed up. I never watched to tell, but I knew that if he started saying bad words, that was a bad thing. I just stood by ready with my paint. Al Ries, who I've already cited, the author of the 22 Immutable Laws of Branding, has said that usually the first idea, the first thing that gets inside the mind of a prospect is what will stay there. In my early college years, before the arcade, I actually used to deliver pizzas. And part of delivering pizzas is taking the pizza order. And my manager used to tell me, Jesse, when you answer the phone, you have to smile because people can hear if you're smiling on the phone. And she said this all the time. I'll never forget. She said, you only have one chance to make a great first impression. So don't mess it up! But she would yell at me like that. You only have one chance to make a great first impression. So these are those three. Let's do this actually real quick. Do you guys remember what those are? Be consistent. Keep it simple. Make a great first impression. And there you have it. 3 easy tips to help you build a brand for life. Toastmaster.